And welcome back to the Lore and Valor podcast. I am joined once again by my friends Joelle and Brian Urbanek. We are here to talk to you about Arcane episode 7. And I've been forgetting to do this, but as always, spoilers. Every time we talk about
all
TV
the spoilers.
all the spoilers. And Brian, like me, has already seen the whole show and is deep in the lore of League of Legends. So while we do try to avoid spoilers for the entire show, we can't promise that. There might be spoilers for the entire show. So you have been warned. I hope you'll stay with us for the conversation because I imagine it's going to be a great one. But so you all know that that's a thing. So episode 7, The Boy Savior. They just keep knocking it out of the park.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I love this one so very much. Even the elements that are kind of, I feel, they definitely were set up. Like Echo's plotline is largely what I'm getting at. It was definitely set up, but it still feels like another. We're adding another important supporting character.
I'm no longer Team Powder. I am now Team Little Man.
You're Team Little Man?
I'm Team Little Man for as long as I get
him. He is adorable, both as a little man and as a resistance fighter.
Yeah.
And I think his introduction is so important too, because we finally have someone in the Undercity who, although he seems overwhelmed and overpowered by Silco and by Piltover to some extent, we have someone in the Undercity trying to do it right. You know, you have a leader in the Undercity who represents actual responsible, more or less, good intended leadership. So I thought that was a really good addition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. So coming at this series as a writer has been, I mean, it's been such a cool experience because for me, I consider myself, when I start a new story, I start with character first, right? And I aspire to have all of my stories be character driven versus plot driven, where it's the decisions and the actions of the characters in the moment that move the action of the story forward. And so one of the things that I've appreciated about Arcane so far is that that's very much the case here as well, is that it is the decisions and actions taken by the characters, whether they are well-informed or ill-informed, that has moved everything forward from the very beginning. And so when we get to this episode and we get the introduction or the reintroduction of the little man / Echo character, that it's like, oh goody, here's another facet of a very cool character that I can like dig into and analyze and
hooray, he's still alive.
Right. And identify, because I had wondered, right? One of the things we've talked about from the beginning is that this team, this storytelling team, did a very good job of planting seeds and doing little foreshadowing during the first half of the series. And one of those threads that hadn't been picked up truly until now was what happened to Little Man. We saw him run away. We knew he didn't go with Vi. But then what, right? What happened to him in the great shimmering of the Undercity after Vander's death, right?
Yeah, and it's been a lot of episodes.
What's that?
It's been a lot of episodes since we last saw him.
I think he's been in every one.
Really?
Yeah, just masked.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, because yes, he has.
So he's been with us.
A lot of episodes since we recognized him, or at least I recognized him.
Yeah. He's been in every episode.
Yeah, I will say that I did call it once he gave the order to take Vi rather than to kill her.
Yeah,
and once he was confronting her, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to turn out to be Little Man right here. Yeah, completely agree. And I do like, it's maybe a little tropey, but I do think when he pulls Vi in and he has her handcuffed and she's had the handcuffs off the whole time, it was slick enough. I enjoyed that. And I felt their reunion was sufficiently emotional that there's someone from her old life who isn't dead or completely corrupted.
Yes.
And insane.
Yes. Yeah. And I think at that point in the story, in order for her character not to give into despair, she needed that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can definitely see that just the fact that he's alive and that he's created this, I mean, I'm just going to call it what it is, this community that is a metaphor for hope, gave her that hope and her that ability to be like, all right, let's keep fighting. You know, let's do something. Even if I can't hang out with this girl that might be my best friend and also might be maybe my girlfriend, I'm not really sure yet because I'm not trying to read too deeply into the emotional dynamics here. But I'm going to go talk to her friend who seemed interested in taking Silker down, because that is something I know I can do.
Yeah, fair enough. Brian, I'm assuming from his design and abilities and the fact that he has a Back to the Future hoverboard, this seems like he's a playable character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is actually really interesting because any League player recognized, oh, he's a major character, like he's Echo, for God's sake, when we first saw him as Little Man. And so we knew he was going to come back. Mm-hmm. What is kind of interesting is the sort of ebullient personality he had as Little Man is the same personality he had in the show. What they gave us that's new but made work is the leader of a group and the hardcore intensity that he has. It always fit the way the character played, because he is an extremely aggressive charge character, exactly the way the Bridge Battle, which I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot.
Oh yeah. I kind of want to save that for towards the end because that is such a beautiful sequence. We'll gush about that for sure.
Yeah, but the persona they gave him in the game didn't match that. The persona they gave him in the show fit it better, and that's really an interesting evolution for us who knew this was going to be Echo. They still gave us a twist on it.
Was that gorgeous tree in the game?
No.
Okay. And I'm just saying,
nothing in the game does not take place in Piltover and Zaun.
Okay.
So
they're part of the lore, but you never fight
our cruise where everybody goes with us, all the viewers, and the four of us get to go to visit Piltover and Zaun. We're going to the tree as long as it's still there at the end of the season. Yeah. I'm kind of afraid that something horrible is going to happen to that tree. I have not seen the last episode.
So let's talk about setting. While you bring that up, Joelle, let's talk about setting for a minute too, because one of the things that really came together in this episode for me is that, like, I started to all the setting pieces that everyone had been mentioning throughout the series really started to gel for me, you know, because I knew that there were some mines somewhere, and I knew that you know, the people who worked there had like a hard time, and I knew, but none of that really sort of started to come together until this episode, where I saw that, you know, they were in this, what do they call it, the fissure, or the fissures. The fissures, yeah, yep. which are apparently the site of these mines that mine this mineral wealth that feeds Piltover in some capacity. And that there's this tree grew, and as Echo says, if a seed could fall and grow here, then anyone can. And again, it's that metaphor for hope and for there's a meme going around on the internet. I haven't seen it in a couple of weeks, but prior to that, I was seeing it a lot. It was something about, like, you know, how people talk about hope as a delicate flower, but hope is not. Hope is scrappy and tough. And
I've seen it.
Yeah, a rat. That's right. Hope is a rat that, like, won't die, you know? And that's what that reminded me of, is because, you know, here's this beautiful, strong, huge, flowering, living being that was able to live in this incredibly hostile environment, and not just live, but thrive to the point where it could provide shelter to other living beings who are seeking that refuge and seeking that shelter. And so I thought that piece of it was very, very beautiful and so skillfully done.
And the palette shifts, right? All the color that location brought into the world.
Yeah.
And in some ways it makes the rest of it darker because you get the contrast.
Yeah. It's part of that visual storytelling that they've been so good at throughout this whole series.
Yeah, so. And portraying the impact of the fissures. This is maybe my favorite Silco episode because of his humanity, in that he's so worried about Jinx the whole time, but that when he's dealing with, I'm going to call him Trapjaw because I'm not going to bother to learn the guy's name, with the golden jawbone, when he's facing a mutiny in the ranks, and he just walks in like the boss he is and poisons them all, and he's breathing it, and he's just saying, "You've all gone soft. You've forgotten where we're from." And it's for all of Silco's hypocrisy and evil. That's why he still falls into the magnificent bastard category of villains, because it's like, yeah, I want him to lose, but God, he's so fun to watch sometimes, and he does bring people, who deserve it down. That it's like, those guys they're a bunch of pricks, and Silco, while he has so many flaws, still has virtues, and that's something I love about this show, is that everyone. It's like, oh, you just want to hate him and write him off. Everyone has humanity.
Yeah.
And even Savika, we'll get to in a minute, shows some real humanity in this episode.
I love her now.
There may have been hints before, but this was the first episode where I realized that Silco, that the folks in Piltover have to deal with council and have to do politics. That down below in Zaun, there is also a council.
Yeah, there's like a shadow council.
Yeah, it's just a little more likely to go lethal. If you can't come to a talkie agreement.
And plenty of other shows and fiction have done that, baddies being baddies to each other in a council before, but it worked really well.
Yeah.
Well, and part of the reason I think it worked really well, again, is because of the visual element. There was so much symmetry between the Shadow Council's chambers and the Piltover Council's chambers, and like their table was the same shape, right? Like the way in which the camera moved to each of the faces was the same. You know what I mean? And I just, I don't know. I thought it was very cool.
Actually, I want to point out a contradiction. The Piltover Council has, by default, the windows are closed and it is dark with only artificial lighting. The Zaun Council is in a freaking arboretum with glass roof and plants everywhere. The aesthetics in which they surround themselves, the austere cleanliness and clean lines of the Piltover Council versus the deeply organic look of the Zaun console is interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I thought that was very. I thought the Zaun council room was very beautiful because it had that whole Art Nouveau aesthetic to it. But I want to say that wasn't there also? I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining it. Was there a scene where they closed the windows of the Piltover Council earlier in the series, or did I imagine that?
Well, there's definitely windows, but they keep them closed by default. Is what I meant. But yeah, there's definitely windows.
In more scenes than not, the windows are closed. But Casey, I think you're right. I think there is one scene where you have the dramatic,
Yeah, because they're starting the council. That's kind of what I was thinking of when they did that one shot of the window of the Zaun council, right?
Mm-hmm. Good meeting. Yeah, no.
Yes, I love that line.
So awesome, and the fact that Trapjaw's just trying to subvert Savika to no avail. She's smart enough to know that even if he's off his game, Silco's still way more dangerous than any of those twats.
Okay, I have another like thought.
Go ahead.
You know how I'm making predictions throughout this.
Yeah.
Is Savika Scorched's daughter?
Who?
Savika.
Is
she? Is his name Scorched? Or no, Scorched?
Singed, the scientist.
Singed, the scientist. Is that his kid?
Savika is not a game character. That is not a part. Like, it is possible they might have done that. We know he has a daughter. We know they don't get it. That she doesn't. Maybe.
Yeah, she doesn't have much in common with her father. Singed said he once had a daughter. Yeah, and the connection. I mean, they both have ties, obviously, to Silco. So
it's at least possible.
That's what I started.
That'd be cool.
I do also like Victor cooperating with Singed because I love, like, first of all, the you can see it from a mile away, but you still understand why he's doing it.
Yeah,
kind of tragedy, that it's like, Victor, we know this isn't going to turn out well, We all know it, but you also understand why Victor has to.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not you're not frustrated with Victor the way you are when you watch a character make a too stupid to live decision. You know, very often to set up dramatic tension, a writer will just, the character was being dumb. And it's like, but the character's not dumb. You've told me the character's not dumb.
Right.
And then you had them act inexplicably dumb, and you want me to go with you on it, and I'm really frustrated with you. This was not that. This was Victor's motivations are completely understandable, and he's still going to do something tragic. But also beyond just Victor's character development, I love the layers and complexity of the interactions between Piltover and Zaun and all the different pillars of society, right? That you have Silco's corrupt relationship with Marcus. You have Victor's early mentorship from Singe that he then rekindles. You have Caitlin and Vi, you know, like all these kind of mirrors and images of each other and their similarities and contrasts. And it's all so, God, it's all so well written and so well laid out. And I adore it. And I have a hard time not just devolving into gushing about how much everyone should watch this show.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm right there with you, man. I think it's definitely some of the best character writing that I've seen in a very long time, especially on TV.
Absolutely. And then we get we're back with Jason, Mel, and more CrossFit science, which was
I have a note on here. So I made notes, right? I have a note on here that says Jace porn.
Yeah. Fan serviced.
That's right. And I'm, you know, I will cop to being a heterosexual female who enjoyed that scene immensely. It's beautifully written, beautifully drawn.
Yeah. Well, and like, you know, I can't deny a little bit of a crush on Mel. So I mean, it's a little appropriate. And that only grows in this episode and the next episode. I think Mel's character development in the last couple episodes of this series just she's already great, but it just skyrockets to something truly epic. I do like
because you get to see her vulnerability, and it's genuine, right? Like we talked in the last couple of episodes. I kept saying that she's vulnerable, but that doesn't mean she's not using that vulnerability. Well, now we get to see where that vulnerability comes from. And
and more so in the next episode. We're still on episode 7, but yeah, I get what you're saying, Casey.
Sure. Yeah.
And I love the debate that starts here with Mel, Victor, and Jace, and will continue into episode 8 is, okay, we've got this great technology. We know now what Jinx, we don't know that it's Jinx, but we know Jinx is arming Silco's faction. Like they're developing advanced weapon systems, and we'll find out just how advanced in the next episode. We need to weaponize what you've got. And the idea, the pro forma idealism, we're scientists, not soldiers. We can't use this for weapons. It's like, guys, it exists. It can be weaponized. Either you weaponize it or someone else will first. Like, that's it. That is all there is. You can dislike it as much as you want to, but there's no way to put the genie back in the box. And
I've got a side mill comment, if we can slip that in before we get into the weaponization.
No,
you know the close up we got of the letter with the almost looks like it's a car emblem for the seal. I just looked at that and I thought there's got to be somebody at Dragon Con who's going to be selling stationery with these seals.
That would be so cool.
So if you buy this stationery, do you like send it to your friend that you got in a fight with at the beginning of the conflict, at the beginning of the pandemic that you haven't spoken to in 2 years, and be like, here, let me lay down. You're invited to a D&D duel online. We're going to hash things out.
That's funny.
I don't know. There's just so much potential for Arcane fans to reconnect with appropriate in-universe merch.
Totally agree.
And so, audience out there, if any of you want to do this, you go for it.
Yeah.
Fight with the liability with Arcane owners, and as far as mine, I would like to buy one. So if you make it, let me know.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny.
Yeah, and sorry, pardon me. I like that in this episode, her conversation with her assistant, that you get a very clear indicator. And Brian, I love your commentary on this. That Mel is aware of threats to Piltover far beyond Zaun. And then when she's asking Jace and Victor to weaponize what they've got, it's not necessarily primarily to deal with Silco. Silco's a warm-up for her, I feel like.
And do you agree with that, though, that you can't once something's invented, you can't put it back in the bottle? Because Heimerdinger seemed to imply that this had been a thing before, and somehow it got squished back in the bottle.
And now it's back again.
And now it's back again.
But he's old, right? I mean, is he thousands, hundreds? How long has it been in the bottle?
About 300.
Still comes around. But can you think of a real-world example where we invented a technology and it was viable, useful, and effective, and we decided not to use it anymore?
Yes,
without a better option. Without a better option, a more economical option.
Yes.
What technology?
So gunpowder in Japan. And you could argue that the better option for the people who were putting it back in the bottle was to stay with the swords. And sailing ships in China.
Okay.
Built a great fleet.
Two things.
The emperor decided to burn them. And I mean, it only stayed in the bottle for a while, but it did.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, and where did Japan and China end up on the power scale of civilizations?
When they met the people who didn't put it in the bottle.
Yeah. So what does China end up? China ends up a vassal state to the Europeans and then to Japan. What does Japan end up because it didn't adopt early enough? It ends up our ally.
Yeah.
But definitely the junior partner after we smashed them in World War II. So you can try to put
that too, because that was part of the impetus for the imperialist expansion in the late 30s and 40s of Japan, is that they were very cognizant of this idea that, like, you know,
a self-strengthening program. Yes.
Right. There was like a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of, you know, the Europeans think that they're better than us because they had the gunpowder, you know, they used gunpowder first, and we
we didn't invent it, clearly.
No. And so, you know, during the Meiji Restoration and beyond, and then after that, there was that was part of the reason for the rise of, I mean, Bushido didn't rise during the Meiji Restoration necessarily, but it all kind of fed into it, right? And so that was the rise of this imperialist culture, this militaristic culture that was predominant in Japan in the late 30s. Was, you know, we should be the emperors of at least of Asia. You know, there is no reason why the British should rule the seas. We should rule the seas. And so, you know, that was why they invaded China. That was why they started building their fortress of ring islands around the mainland islands. And it directly led to Pearl Harbor, and it directly led to them getting nuked twice, you know?
Yeah. So, Joelle, in answer to your question, like, yeah, I suppose it is possible to stuff the genie back in for a little while, but then there's a very good chance it's going to get used against you.
Yeah.
I don't think we can definitively say that it has never been stuffed back in successfully, because if it had been stuffed back in successfully,
we wouldn't know.
Right?
Okay, then I'll phrase it this way. I see insufficient evidence of a case where a significant technological advance was denied by a civilization, and that it either didn't come back eventually or end up with them suffering a massive loss of some sort on the world stage. You're correct. There could be an example I either just don't know about because I haven't researched it well enough, or that is just not really well known to history, because it turns out had you gone down this track of development, it would have come up with the longer lasting light bulb or a cure for pancreatic cancer or whatever. You know, like, you're correct in that, but...
Or we'd have taller skyscrapers because we could use Damascus steel.
Yeah, something like that. So, possible, like, I grant you that, but now I'm trying to prove a negative, and we all know that that's not a winner's game. Go ahead, Brian. It looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, I think the conversation is not quite the right framing. Heimerdinger wasn't saying this tech is dangerous, so he did get to there. It was that thing right there specifically is an active bomb, and it will go off soon. Destroy that thing.
Yeah. Although he does put the brakes on Victor and Jace I think I would say to too great of a degree, and it's what leads them to ultimately rebel and Jace to oust him from political power. But yeah, you're correct in the particulars, Brian, that he says that particular development could kill us all. You need to destroy it. So that is true.
But to go, to kind of underscore your point about Mel's point, Justin, there's a reason that the saying "sic vis pacem para bellum" has existed for thousands of years, right? Like, it's a truism. If you want peace, prepare for war. Yeah. So, I mean, that's essentially
verb. You can't argue with Latin.
That's right. But I mean, it's an underpinning of our national strategic strategy, even to this day. Strategic deterrence is still a huge part of what we as the United States do for that reason.
Yeah. Joelle, do you want to take issue with that?
No.
Okay. I don't want to cut off the conversation on that.
Former Navy nuke engineer, do you want to take issue with that?
I feel like I should make a can neither confirm nor deny comment here.
So yeah, I like that tension because it is like I recognize the validity of Victor's emotions. It's regrettable that it's the case.
Yeah,
but it is the case. But putting that aside for a moment, Jinx in this episode, man. I really appreciate this because this is the kind of arc that, again, I feel is so easy to get wrong, right? This is the arc that in most stories, Jinx sees one incriminating data point and decides to burn her relationship and kill her sister. That's what happens in most stories with this. But yeah. I love that it takes so much that Jinx does love her sister deep down inside, and it does take multiple data points that look bad for her to even get to the point where she's truly hostile towards Vi and kind of wants to kill Caitlyn. I really appreciate the way they handle that in this because, again, so easy to get wrong.
And I would still even argue, I don't think she was hostile towards Vi. I think she was shooting at Caitlyn. Vi just happened to be standing close,
Sure.
Which I know, like, you want to talk about the ultimate in splitting hairs. You're shooting at me or you're shooting at the guy next to me, but you're shooting with a minigun. They don't call it an area of effect weapon for nothing. But
shooting a minigun with no optics or apparent
no sight with nothing. I mean, it's a minigun, but but yeah,
maybe this is CrossFit marksmanship. I don't know.
Must be it because we'll see Jace do more in the next episode
too. Yeah, but yeah, it's I still given what they showed us of her mental gymnastics right in that moment with her, her vision of her dead brother and the voices in her head and what she's thinking and what the scene through her eyes was focused on. If you noticed, Vi was off to the side. It was all on Caitlyn. And so that's why I make that argument that I think she was actually shooting at Caitlyn. She was just willing to accept that Vi might also get hurt.
Yeah. No, I think you're correct in that assessment.
Yeah.
I just, again, I like the fact that it wasn't cheap,
Yeah.
And that likewise.
But I also have a note that that Jinx doesn't get to be mad at Vi for leaving her anymore. Because once you shoot at me, I'm going to be
We're even now, at least.
Right? We're done.
What about once you shoot at the person who's standing next to me?
Again, if you're using an area of effect weapon, same goes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also like in the other direction that she doesn't immediately sever her relationship with Silco either. That it's like that she is like torn at her interaction with Silco. Again, like so many layers. Because I think when she calls Silco out on the fact that he knew Vi was alive, Silco is even telling the truth as he sees it. Right? He's not manipulating.
Point.
Go ahead.
This is a point where I've got to say, that I was wrong and Kacey was right before. I had looked at Silco's relationship and how he interacted with other people, and it was like, no, he doesn't really see himself as a father figure. This is all a farce. But no, he really is. At least in his own mind, he's trying to be a good dad.
Yeah,
he sucks at it a lot of the time, but he's trying.
Yeah, he loves her. He genuinely loves her, you know, and trusts her to the point where he allows her to stick shimmer into his like fucked up eyeball.
Yeah, and trusts her
she's
over
stabbing at him with the medical device. He still lets her do it.
And still trusts her over Singe. Still believes in her ability and her brilliance over his staff mad scientist. You know, that I think that's very cool and very deep. And it's another reflection of how Silco and Vonder, you know, in a lot of ways were maybe kind of the same guy in some ways, you know, that they have the same problems and just address them a little bit differently and kind of fuck up the same way. You know, that like Vonder genuinely loved Vi and Powder and could not lead Vi well enough to keep her out of trouble. Silco genuinely loves Jinx and can't lead her well enough to keep her out of trouble. Like, it's just so, oh man, so good, so good.
As the late joiner, I think it's interesting that when I first got here talking about episode 5, and I'm listening to episode 4 before I joined, y'all still called her Powder, and now y'all are calling her Jinx.
Well, she shot at her sister.
So I think I made the switch when she did. When there was the and I can't remember if it was in episode 4 or 5, but the baptism scene where she by her own choice goes into the water and is submerged while Silco is telling her that she needs to let Powder go because Jinx is perfect. Yeah.
And when she came back and she did that boxing game, it still had POW as her. She didn't go through and scratch out and make it Jinx.
Yeah.
And we know Powder's still in there because we get the callback. She confronts Echo.
Yeah.
Still Powder inside there.
Yes.
So
I thought it was interesting, Brian, before we really get into this, I want to take us back to the beginning of the conversation where you mentioned that in the game, Echo's character has this like exuberance, this like almost, is it like a playfulness?
Yes.
Because you see that, even though he's very serious and very intense, and I loved the intensity. So true confession, the hottest thing about my husband is how intense he can get, right? Like male intensity, just that's my button. It does it for me, right? So when you have a great character like that, sorry if that's TMI, guys, but when you have a great character like that and that intensity is portrayed, like it hits just right, you know? And that's something that like even is missing in, as beautiful as Jace in the shirtless smithing scene is, that was missing. You know, what's missing from that is that edge, that intensity. But Echo has it in spades, and I thought that was beautiful. But the great thing about the very beginning of the confrontation scene on the bridge between Echo and Jinx is that we see that intensity married with that playfulness, because he laughs and then he lets that watch swing in the way that they did when they were children, and they would like spar with each other. I mean, I love that. I was like, that is freaking brilliant. Freaking brilliant. And when you say that calls back to his character as presented in the game as a player character, I think that the storytellers of the show made a brilliant choice in presenting his exuberance in that fashion.
Let's talk about the bridge scene, and then I'll lay out the extra layers that you would pick up if you're a game player.
Okay. Well, I started. Okay.
Let's go.
So from a story perspective, I'll add one more thing, and then Joelle, whatever you want to say, and then I want Brian to nerd the hell out.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to say is that I love the whole sequence, and then at the climactic moment when he's looking at Jinx and he sees Powder clearly, you know, and like you said, you're using the word intensity, Kacey, and it's totally appropriate. The intensity of their connection, and that he knows Jinx is dangerous. Jinx has killed some of his people. You know, he knows she needs to be stopped and he can't do it because the little girl is still there that he cares very much about. And it turns out to be an error. You know, like I love that is such a theme throughout this of, you know, empathy and compassion are so important and they might cost you and you should still have them anyway. I love that this is just one more example of that, storytelling wise, on an interpersonal level, on a societal level. They do it well throughout this, and there's one more great beat of that between Echo and Jinx / Powder that I really love. Now, Brian, hit it. Oh wait, no, Joelle, did you have anything else to say about the scene? Shut up, Brian. Sorry.
In the lead up before the fight scene, Caitlin is really sure of herself, knowing what will and will not stop the cycle of violence. And I completely buy that character believes that she knows. But I'm watching the characters Vi and Echo, and they're going along with it, but I'm not sure they believe. And so it just adds the intensity because I don't believe that she knows. And as an audience member, and I'm thinking, okay, some of the audience is going to think that she knows and that life is as simple, that someone who is the age of Caitlin, who has had the limited experience that Caitlin has, would be able to clearly know how it all works and what can stop and what can, and it just, it puts me on the edge of my seat going into the fight.
And there's a little bit of added narrative tension there too, because we as the audience know what's going to happen to that gemstone if they bring it back into Piltover, in that, well, we know at least what Mel wants to have happen to it. And so far she's gotten her way with pretty much everything, you know? You know, we're sitting here arguing that Jace really doesn't have, I mean, there's always a choice, but there really isn't a viable choice other than to look into weaponizing the technology. And that's what we know is destined for it. But Caitlin is, as you say, still so naive and so idealistic that she thinks that it can go otherwise. And yeah, I'm with you. I just think she just doesn't know yet.
Also, her lens, though. Her lens is maintain order and law enforcement, right? Weaponizing the society is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Well, maintain order, enforce the laws fairly, that she genuinely believes that there can be justice for all.
Right.
And this is, Caitlin's a great example of a character that, again, personal philosophy injecting here, but the aspirational and the descriptive are both vital to life, in my opinion. And Caitlin's aspirations are correct, that is what you're always trying to march towards, but understanding the accurately descriptive in that it's never been done.
Yeah.
And you're always shooting for an approximation. And if you go too far into utopianism, the results tend to be way worse than whatever you were on. Again, Kacey and I have been ankle deep, hip deep in the Russian Civil War for a year or two now, and it's a direct real world example of, like, man, it's so easy to make things worse if you're not careful. You don't think it is, but it really is.
Yeah.
It's easy to make things worse. So again, like, I appreciate Caitlin's character, and again, I think she's naive and inexperienced, not stupid. So she's trying things that seem logical to her to resolve the situation and maybe aren't entirely off base. But like you said, Joelle, it's not that easy. There's not the one act of redemptive grace. Well, there is one act of redemptive grace for some of us who share that particular faith. But in mortal terms, there's no one act of redemptive grace that resolves a conflict as complex as the conflict between Piltover and Zaun. So yeah, beautiful storytelling, believable storytelling. Such a good way to set up a tragedy. I'm not saying it ends tragically, but, you know, just in case it
does. Say no spoilers.
Brian.
In League of Legends, every character has a small tagline. Jinx is the loose cannon, for example. Echo's tagline is the boy who broke time. The technology he will invent is a way to use hex tech to, in a personal, for himself only level, rewind himself about 16 seconds in time.
He's the Omega 16 device.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And the device is a slight variation on the canister he was holding the gem in.
Oh, okay.
So if we think about the way the battle played out, they saw it play out, and then he lost. It was the childhood version, who saw the battle play and lost, and then it cut back to adult him. He restarted the stopwatch, and he made the charge, and this time he succeeded.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly how the game plays out, where you can try a thing from a different angle if you fail. Do it again.
Very cool.
Right? So it is this poetic analogy of the super tech he's going to eventually have. Additionally, the way the character's kit works is he is extremely good at closing distance. The character's whole point is to be a countermeasure to a character like Jinx, who can shoot him, but he can lunge forward fast enough and evasively enough that he cannot be hit. The counterplay from the Jinx character is his charge will always put him at a knowable fixed location when he gets to you. And so what a Jinx character will do is throw down their bombs at the place where you know he will end up.
Which is what ends up happening.
Which is what that gorgeous, narratively wonderful scene was a perfect representation of how the game plays at an extremely high level of skill.
That's wonderful.
That's so cool. I'm so glad you joined us on this thing, man.
Yeah. Such a wonderful insight.
Yeah.
And then, so going back to an earlier theme of, that I've talked about a few different times, I think peace is not the natural state, and it's always maintained by, brutal levels of effort from people who really want it. And that one poorly placed individual, in this case, Marcus, can ruin your best attempt at peace. So Vi and Caitlin are trying to escape, and Marcus is there. God damn Marcus. I will say that him foiling it, completely dramatically appropriate. I'm really glad the explosion killed him for a few different reasons. One, I did kind of want him to die at this point. Two, this is another thing that most stories do that is kind of obnoxious, which the explosion is the thing everyone survives. It's like, as much as I love my Marvel Cinematic Universe, when Avengers Endgame gets nuked by an alien spaceship and nobody gets hurt, I appreciate that. It's like, oh no, you really shouldn't play with explosives. People can get hurt and die.
Right. Yeah.
So the fact that it actually killed someone who was important to the plot is a minor thing, but it's something that matters to me. And again, plays into that, the process of peace and understanding between disparate groups is important. And there's going to be so many roadblocks. The other thing that happened earlier in the episode, but I did want to call attention to it, even though it's hard not to just end on what Brian said, because that was such a gorgeous summary. When Victor comes back from the Undercity and tries to get through the blockade, and his interaction with Jace, when Jace is like, what were you doing in the Undercity? He's like, why did you blockade the road? Well, they're dangerous. I'm from Undercity, Jace. And that when Victor had been talking to Singe and, talking about the shimmer that he's going to use, the shimmer variant he's going to use to try to cure himself, and Victor says, Jace will understand. And then he gets to the bridge and Jace says, well, people from the Undercity are dangerous, and Victor closes down.
Yeah.
And, when he asks him, was your friend able to help? No, he wasn't. And that shutting down of communication that we know is going to lead to tragedy. Not that maybe Jace wouldn't have changed anything, but maybe talking it out would have, there could have been some other way or some safeguard they could have done that doesn't end up with what we see in the next episode, which I won't spoil.
There's at least one consequence that talking it out would have prevented, I think.
Yeah. Well, and Victor is so much, to me, so much a cautionary tale of what happens when you are cut off or cut yourself off from all human connection, and that shutdown that you're talking about is just one more example of that, of this connection being severed. So. And
Jace's lack of nuance, because he still clearly has that connection with Jace, but Jace's lack of nuance and prejudice in a crucial moment, which is completely understandable. Like it's something anyone might say under stress, but just the exact wrong words, the exact wrong time to the exact wrong person.
Right.
And so believable. Again, no one's being too stupid to live. Not even our himbo CrossFit scientist. Even he's not being unreasonably stupid. God, it's so good. Yeah, I think that covers most of what I wanted to say about this really amazing episode. Joelle, any final notes before we start heading towards the wrap up?
I only have wrap up notes. Do you want to start wrap up?
Yeah, I think
okay.
Unless somebody else has something else, I think we're going to start the wrap up.
So butterfly bombs. I'm going to be a butterfly bomb for Halloween. That's what I've decided. Jinx's little butterfly bomb. It's beautiful.
Who made the butterfly bombs? Do we know that yet? Did Jinx make them? Okay.
We saw her. They weren't very heavy-handed with it, but we saw her like with tweezers attaching a wing to a little robot.
That's
butterfly.
Right. Yeah. See, the problem is after every time I watch one of these episodes, I feel like I have to go back and watch all of the previous ones.
Oh, boo-hoo.
Right? I know, right? Unfortunately, I do have like children to raise and books to write. And
me too.
So, yeah. But yeah, no, the butterfly bombs were very, very cool. Very cool.
Okay. Any other closing thoughts? Casey?
Nope.
Okay. Brian?
Bridge was a bloody amazing, and I'm so looking forward to talking about next episode.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's going to be so much fun. So wrapping up the episode, Joelle, what's out now? What's coming up next?
Goodness. Okay. Let's see. My brain is broken. I've written things. I'm sure I have.
Okay. I'll go for Joelle. Look for the electronic advanced reader copy of the Dabare Snake Launcher.
Yeah.
Available now from banebooks.com. You'll see a link to that below, as well as Joelle's website. And I think you have a newsletter up and running, right, Joelle?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And if you sign up for my newsletter, there's a book giveaway coming, and I will tell you about that at the end of the next show.
Awesome. Brian, you went last time, so you get to go second this time. Go ahead.
Yay. Hi, I'm working on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, and I just looked at the website, and oh good, we have mentioned that we're doing the next iteration of Warzone, and so that's what I'm helping to lead.
Yay!
Nice. And Casey, what's out now? What's up next? What would you like to like people to know about?
So what's out now? My latest like individual release is the third book in my Psyche of War series about psychic women in wartime. And the third book is called Skies to Conquer. The first book is called Minds of Men. It is a 3-book trilogy, as most trilogies are. And
except for Bane trilogies. Bane trilogies are 5 books.
I know I know. But that's available now on Amazon, and you can also get them through Chris Kennedy Publishing, and you can also get them through my website if you check that out. Coming next, I've got a short story coming out in the Hit World Dockeries anthology to be released in September. And to be released in September is my own anthology that I co-edited with Larry Correa. It is the No Game for Knights noir fantasy science fiction anthology that is the follow-up to our original Noir Fatale that came out a couple years ago. This one is for the guys.
Nice. And as per last time, please pick up mine, Casey's, and Tom Kratman's novel of an alternate Russian Civil War, The Romanov Rescue, which I still thank you, Joelle, for covering your buddy, because I still forgot to bring my hardback in to hold up. So thank you.
Come to see it in mass market as well.
And available in mass market very soon. Links to that will be below. Thanks for joining us. Please consider leaving us a comment for the algorithms, liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, leaving us a 5-star review on your choice. That is all the time we have for the Lorne Valor podcast now. I'll see you next time, and until then, keep up the fire.